The interstellar fleet panicked. A human ship had entered their coordinates, Commander. Zethkar's primary eyes dilated in horror as the proximity alarms shrieked across the bridge of the Eternal Dominion. The massive Catherian dreadnought flagship of the Galactic Coalition's most feared battle fleet trembled as every sensor array locked onto the impossible signature that had just materialized at the edge of their formation. "Report!" Zethkar's voice cracked through his translator, betraying the terror that his species' rigid military conditioning couldn't quite suppress. Lieutenant Vexani, her usually steady tentacles now writhing in panic, struggled to read the displays. "Sir, it's a human vessel. Single ship. Designation appears to be the caffeinated." A collective gasp rippled through the bridge crew, a mixture of Catherians, Zephyrians, and Altarians who had served together for decades, without ever showing such fear. But then again, none of them had ever encountered humans before. The stories were legendary throughout the galaxy, whispered in the dark corners of space stations, shared in hushed tones among veteran crews, and documented in classified military files that most species refused to acknowledge existed. Humans, the apex predators of Sol 3, who had somehow achieved faster-than-light travel in less time than it took most civilizations to discover fire. The species that had turned warfare into an art form, who thrived in conditions that would kill most sentient beings and who possessed a peculiar brand of insanity they called ingenuity. "Sir," Communications Officer Rithmos stammered, his scaled hand shaking over the control panel. They're hailing us." Zethkar felt his twin heart skip a beat. The Coalition fleet, 12 of the most advanced warships in known space, hung motionless in the void, their crews paralyzed by the presence of a single human vessel that looked like it had been cobbled together from spare parts and held together with what their intelligence reports called duct tape and prayer. "On screen," Zethkar commanded, straightening his uniform and trying to project an authority he didn't feel. The view screen flickered to life, revealing a cramped bridge that defied every principle of military ship design. Cables hung from the ceiling. Someone had apparently spilled coffee on the main console, and in the background Zethkar could swear he saw a small earth creature, a cat, sleeping on what appeared to be a weapons control station. At the center of this chaos stood a human female, wearing what looked like a stained jumpsuit and holding a steaming mug of the legendary human stimulant. Her hair was tied back haphazardly, and she had the characteristic predator's eyes that made every other species in the galaxy instinctively want to run. "Howdy there," the human said cheerfully, taking a sip from her mug. "Captain Sarah Chen, of the independent vessel the Caffeinated. Y'all seem a bit jumpy. Everything okay?" Zethkar's translator struggled with the human's casual dialect, but the meaning was clear enough to send a chill down his exoskeleton. This creature was addressing the most powerful military force in this sector of space, as if she'd just encountered them at a social gathering. "This is Commander Zethkar of the Galactic Coalition Fleet," he managed, his voice barely steady. "You are in violation of Galactic Navigation Protocol 7 Alpha. This is a restricted military exercise zone." Captain Chen raised an eyebrow, a gesture that their xenobiology experts claimed was a human threat display. "Oh, that's what all those big ships are doing here. Sorry about that. My nav computer's been acting up ever since we flew through that ion storm near Kepler 442b. Mind if I ask what kind of exercise you're running? Looks like you've got enough firepower here to glass a small moon." The casual way she assessed their military capabilities, correctly, Zethkar noted with growing alarm, made several bridge officers visibly flinch. Humans were notorious for their ability to analyze combat scenarios instantaneously, a trait that had evolved from their Death World origins. "That is classified information," Zethkar replied, though he found himself wondering why he was explaining anything to this lone human. "You must vacate this area immediately." "Sure thing, Commander. Just need to grab something from your debris field real quick." Every sensor operator on the bridge suddenly looked up in confusion. "Debris field?" Lieutenant Vexani whispered. "Captain," Chen gestured behind her, where the view screen showed a tactical display of the local space. That field of scrap metal about 30 clicks off your starboard side. Looks like the remains of, let me see. She squinted at her readings. Vorthan Raider-class ships? Nasty pieces of work, those. Someone did a real number on them. Zethkar felt the bottom drop out of his world. The debris field that had been their primary objective, the remains of a Vorthan pirate fleet that had terrorized this sector for months, was something their entire task force had been hunting for weeks. They'd finally tracked the raiders to this location only to find nothing but wreckage. You destroyed them? He asked, though part of him already knew the answer. Destroyed? Nah, Captain Chen waved dismissively. They tried to board us when we were having engine trouble. Figured they wanted to help, but turns out they were pirates. Who knew? Anyway, they got a bit aggressive, so we had to defend ourselves. The human took another sip of her coffee while letting this information sink in. A single human ship had eliminated what their intelligence had classified as a Class A threat to shipping lanes, something that would have required their entire fleet to engage safely. The thing is, Captain Chen continued, one of them managed to damage our coffee maker before we sorted things out. I spotted a replacement part floating in the wreckage that should do the trick. Mind if I collect it? Won't take but a minute. Zethkar looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew, some of the most experienced military personnel in the coalition, and saw his own thoughts reflected in their expressions. This human had casually obliterated a pirate fleet that had been their primary mission objective, and now she wanted to salvage coffee-making equipment from the wreckage. Permission, granted, he heard himself say. Much obliged. Y'all have a great day now. Safe travels. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. On the main screen, they watched as the ramshackle human vessel maneuvered with impossible precision through the debris field, its pilot executing maneuvers that would challenge their most skilled aces, all while apparently doing nothing more than looking for spare parts. Sir, Communications Officer Rithmos said quietly, Fleet Command is requesting our status report. Zethkar stared at the human ship as it completed its salvage operation and began moving away from their position. How exactly was he supposed to explain to High Command that a single human in a ship held together with determination and caffeine addiction had completed their mission before they'd even arrived? Tell them, he said slowly, that the pirate threat has been resolved, and recommend that we update our first contact protocols regarding human vessels. As the caffeinated disappeared into hyperspace, leaving behind only a brief transmission of, "Thanks again, y'all," Zethkar made a mental note to request a transfer to a desk job, preferably one in a sector of space where humans had never been spotted.